on chapter 5. Okay. Reading from Sri Caitanya-caritamrta, Antya-lila, chapter 5. How Pradyumna Misra received instructions from Ramananda Roy. Vaigunya Kita Kalita Paishunya Ranapiditaha Danyar Neve Nigmamonham Chaitanya Vaidyamasraye. I am infected by the germs of material activity and am suffering from the boils of envy. Therefore, falling in an ocean of humility, I take shelter of the great physician, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nitya, no, Jaya Jaya Shachi Sutta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Jaya Kripa Maya Nityananda Dhanya. All glories to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the son of Mother Shachi. All glories to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, he is the most glorious and merciful. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Advaita Prabhu, the ocean of mercy, and to all the devotees, such as Surup Damodar Goswami, Gadadhar Pandit, Sri Rupa Goswami, and Sri Sanatan Goswami. One day, Pradyumna Misra came to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, offering his respects and inquiring from him with great submission. My Lord, he said, kindly hear me. I am a cripple-minded householder, the most fallen of men. But somehow, by my good fortune, I have received the shelter of your lotus feet, which are rarely to be seen. I wish to hear topics concerning Lord Krishna constantly. Be merciful unto me and kindly tell me something about Krishna. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu replied, I do not know about topics concerning Lord Krishna. I think that only Ramananda Roy knows, for I hear these topics from him. It is your good fortune that you were inclined to hear topics regarding Krishna. The best course for you would be to go to Ramananda Roy and hear these topics from him. I see that you have acquired a taste for hearing talks regarding Krishna. Therefore, you are extremely fortunate.
Pull the table forward.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. I see that you have acquired a taste for hearing talks regarding Krishna. Therefore, you are extremely fortunate. Not only you, but anyone who has awakened such a taste is considered most fortunate. A person who properly performs his regulative duties according to Varna and Ashram, but does not develop his dormant attachment for Krishna or awaken his taste for hearing and chanting about Krishna, is certainly laboring fruitlessly. Congratulations, everyone in the room. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 128. Pradyumna Misra, being thus advised by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, went to the home of Ramananda Roy. There, the servant of Ramananda Roy gave him a proper place to sit down. Unable to see Ramananda Roy immediately, Pradyumna Misra inquired from the servant, who then described what Sri Ramananda Roy was doing. There are two dancing girls who are extremely beautiful. They are very youthful and they are expert in dancing and singing. Srila Ramananda Roy has taken these two girls to a solitary place in his garden, where he is teaching and directing them to dance according to the songs he has composed for his drama. Purport: the drama being rehearsed by Ramananda Roy and the two girls was the well-known Jagannath Ballabha Nataka. The songs and dances were meant for the pleasure of Lord Jagannath. Therefore, Ramananda Roy was personally giving instructions on how to sing and dance for the drama. Please sit here and wait for a few moments. As soon as he comes, he will execute whatever order you give him. While Pradyumna Misra remained seated there, Ramananda Roy took the two girls to a solitary place. With his own hand, Sri Ramananda Roy massaged their bodies with oil and bathed them with water. Indeed, Ramananda Roy cleansed their entire bodies with his own hand. Although he dressed the two young girls and decorated their bodies with his own hand, he remained unchanged. Such is the mind of Srila Ramananda Roy. While touching the young girls, he was like a person touching wood or stone, for his body and mind were unaffected. Srila Ramananda Roy used to act in that way because he thought of himself in his original position as a maidservant of the gopis. Thus, although externally he appeared to be a man, internally, in his original spiritual position, he considered himself a maidservant and considered the two girls gopis. Purport: Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes in his Amrita Prapaha Bhashya, Srila Ramananda Roy composed a drama named Jagannath Ballabha Nataka, and he engaged two young girls who were professional dancers and singers to demonstrate the ideology of the drama. Such girls, who are called Devi Dasis, are still employed in the temple of Jagannath, where they are called Maharis. Sri Ramananda Roy engaged two such girls because they were meant to play the parts of gopis. He taught them, and because they were meant to play the parts of gopis, he taught them how to awaken thoughts like those of the gopis. Because the gopis are worshipable personalities, Ramananda Roy, who considered the two girls gopis and himself their maidservant, engaged in their service by massaging their bodies with oil to cleanse them completely. Because Ramananda Roy always placed himself in the position of a maidservant of the gopis, his rehearsal with the girls was actually on the spiritual platform. Because there was no question of personal sense gratification when Sri Ramananda Roy was serving the girls, his mind was steady and his body untransformed. This is not to be imitated, nor is such a mentality possible for anyone but Sri Ramananda Roy, as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu will explain. The example of Sri Ramananda Roy is certainly unique. The author of Sri Caitanya-caritamrta has given this description because in perfect devotional service one can attain such a position. Nevertheless, one must understand this subject very seriously and never attempt to imitate such activities. The greatness of the devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is exceedingly difficult to understand. Sri Ramananda Roy is unique among them all, for he showed how one can extend his ecstatic love to the extreme limit. Ramananda Roy directed the two girls how to dance and express the deep meaning of his songs through dramatic performances. He taught them how to express the symptoms of continuous, natural, and transitional ecstasies with the movements of their faces, their eyes, and the other parts of their bodies. Though the feminine poses and dances that they were taught by Ramananda Roy, through the feminine poses and dances they were taught by Ramananda Roy, the two girls precisely exhibited all these expressions of ecstasy before Lord Jagannath. Then Ramananda Roy fed the two girls sumptuous prasadam and sent them to their homes unexposed. Every day he trained the two Devi Dasis how to dance. Who among the small living entities, their minds always absorbed in material sense gratification, could understand the mentality of Sri Ramananda Roy? Purport: Ramananda Roy's service to the gopis for the satisfaction of Krishna is purely an affair of the spiritual world. Unless one is fully situated in the spiritual atmosphere, the activities of Ramananda Roy are most difficult to understand. When the servant informed Ramananda Roy of Pradyumna Mishra's arrival, Ramananda Roy immediately went to the assembly room. He offered his obeisances to Pradyumna Mishra with all respect, and then with great humility spoke as follows. Sir, you came here long ago, but no one informed me. Therefore I have certainly become an offender at your lotus feet. My entire home has been purified by your arrival. Kindly order me. What can I do for you? I am your servant. Pradyumna Mishra replied, I came simply to see you. Now I have purified myself by seeing your honor. Because Pradyumna Mishra saw that it was late, he did not say anything else to Ramananda Roy. Instead, he took leave of him and returned to his own home. The next day, when Pradyumna Mishra arrived in the presence of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord inquired, have you heard talks about Krishna from Sri Ramananda Roy? Pradyumna Mishra thereupon described the activities of Sri Ramananda Roy. After hearing about these activities, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu began to speak. I am a sannyasi, he said, and I certainly consider myself renounced. But what to speak of seeing a woman? If I even hear the name of a woman, I feel changes in my mind and body. Therefore, who could remain unmoved by the sight of a woman? It is very difficult. Everyone, please hear these topics about Ramananda Roy, although they are so wonderful and uncommon that they should not be spoken. The two professional dancing girls are beautiful and youthful, yet Sri Ramananda Roy personally massages their entire bodies with oil. He personally bathes and dresses them and decorates them with ornaments. In this way, he naturally sees and touches the private parts of their bodies. Nevertheless, the mind of Sri Ramananda Roy never changes, although he teaches the girls how to physically express all the transformations of ecstasy. His mind is as steady as wood or stone. Indeed, it is wonderful that even when he touches such young girls, his mind never changes. The authority for such acts is the prerogative of Ramananda Roy alone, for I can understand that his body is not material, but has been completely transformed into a spiritual entity. He alone, and no one else, can understand the position of his mind. But I can make a guess in terms of directions from the Shastra. The Vedic scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, gives the direct evidence in this matter. When one hears or describes with great faith the pastimes of Lord Krishna, such as his rasa dance with the gopis, the disease of lusty desires in his heart, and the agitation caused by the three modes of material nature are immediately nullified, and he becomes sober and silent. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments in this connection. Any person inclined to hear about the pastimes of Krishna's rasa dance, as mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, with great faith and a transcendental, spiritually inspired mind, is immediately freed from the natural lusty desires found within the heart of a materialistic man. When a pure Vaishnava speaks on Srimad Bhagavatam, another pure Vaishnava hears Srimad Bhagavatam from a realized soul, both of them live in the transcendental world, where the contamination of the modes of material nature cannot touch them. Freed from the contamination of the modes of nature, the speaker and hearer are fixed in a transcendental mentality. Knowing that their position on the transcendental platform is to serve the Supreme Lord, knowing that their position on the transcendental platform is to serve the Supreme Lord. The class of men known as Prakrita Sahajas, who consider the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna something like the behavior between a man and a woman, in the material field artificially think that hearing the Rasa Lila will help them by diminishing the lusty desires of their diseased hearts. But because they do not follow the regulative principles, but instead violate even ordinary morals, their contemplation of Rasa Lila is a futile attempt, which sometimes results in their imitating the dealings of the gopis and Lord Krishna. To forbid such habits of the Prakriti Sahajas, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has excluded their material intelligence by using the word Vishwasa, faith. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33-30, Srila Shukadev Goswami says, Naitat samacharej jatu manasapi yanishvaraha vinashyat yacharan maudyad yata rudro vidanjam yata rudab dijam visham. Certainly, one who is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead should never, even within his mind, imitate the activities of the transcendental Rasa Lila of Krishna. If out of ignorance one does so, he will be destroyed, just as if he were to imitate Lord Shiva, who drank poison produced from the ocean. Tasting transcendental, effulgent, sweetly ecstatic love of Krishna, such a person can enjoy life 24 hours a day in the transcendental bliss of the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes. A transcendentally sober person who with faith and love continually hears from a realized soul about the activities of Lord Krishna in his rasa dance with the gopis, or one who describes such activities, can attain full transcendental devotional service at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, lusty material desires, which are the heart disease of all materialistic persons, are for him quickly and completely vanquished. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam. All the activities of Lord Krishna are transcendental, and the gopis are also transcendentally situated. Therefore, the activities of the gopis and Lord Krishna, if seriously understood, will certainly free one from material attachment. Then there is no possibility that lusty material desires will awaken. If a transcendentally situated person, following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami, hears and speaks about the Rasa Lila dance of Krishna, and is always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna while serving the Lord day and night within his mind, what shall I say about the result? It is so spiritually exalted that it cannot be expressed in words. Such a person is an eternally liberated associate of the Lord, and his body is completely spiritualized. Although he is visible to material eyes, he is spiritually situated, and all his activities are spiritual. By the will of Krishna, such a devotee is understood to possess a spiritual body. Srila Ramananda Roy is situated on the path of spontaneous love of Godhead. Therefore, he is in his spiritual body, and his mind is not materially affected. I also hear topics about Krishna from Ramananda Roy. If you want to hear such topics, go to him again. You can mention my name before him, saying, he has sent me to hear about Lord Krishna from you. Go hastily, while he is in the assembly room. Hearing this, Pradyumna Misra immediately departed. Pradyumna Misra went to Ramananda Roy, who offered him respectful obeisances and said, please order me. For what purpose have you come? Pradyumna Misra answered, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has sent me to hear topics about Lord Krishna from you. Hearing this, Ramananda Roy became absorbed in ecstatic love and began to speak with great transcendental pleasure. Following the instructions of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you have come to hear about Krishna. This is my great fortune. How else would I get such an opportunity? Saying this, Sri Ramananda Roy took Pradyumna Misra to a secluded place and inquired from him, what kind of Krishna Katha do you want to hear from me? Pradyumna Misra replied, kindly tell me about the same topics you spoke about at Vidyanagara. That means the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Ramananda Roy on his tour of South India. And that discussion forms a big part of one volume of Caitanya-caritamrta. You are an instructor, even for Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. What to speak of others? I am but a beggar Brahmana, and you are my maintainer. I do not know how to inquire, for I do not know what is good and what is bad. Seeing me to be poor in knowledge, kindly speak whatever is good for me by your own good will. Thereupon Ramananda Roy gradually began speaking on topics of Krishna. Thus the ocean of the transcendental mellows of those topics became agitated. He began personally posing questions and then answering them with conclusive statements. When afternoon came, the topic still did not end. The speaker and listeners spoke and heard in ecstatic love. Thus they forgot their bodily consciousness. How then could they perceive the end of the day? The servant informed them, the day has already ended. Then Ramananda Roy ended his discourses about Krishna. Ramananda Roy paid great respect to Pradyumna Misra and bade him farewell. Pradyumna Misra said, I have become very satisfied. And he then began to dance. After returning home, Pradyumna Misra bathed and ate his meal. In the evening, he came to see the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. In great happiness, he worshipped the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord inquired, have you heard topics about Krishna? Pradyumna Misra said, my dear Lord, you have made me extremely obliged to you because you have drowned me in a nectarian ocean of talks about Krishna. I cannot properly describe the discourses of Ramananda Roy, for he is not an ordinary human being. He is fully absorbed in the devotional service of the Lord. Purport. One is forbidden to accept the Guru or spiritual master as an ordinary human being. Guru Shu, Nadamati. When Ramananda Roy spoke to Pradyumna Misra, Pradyumna Misra could understand that Ramananda Roy was not an ordinary human being. A spiritually advanced person who was authorized to act as the spiritual master, speaks as the spiritual master, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead dictates from within. Thus, it is not he that is personally speaking. In other words, when a pure devotee or spiritual master speaks, what he says should be accepted as having been directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Parampara system. There is one other thing, Ramananda Roy said to me. Do not consider me the speaker in these talks about Krishna. Whatever I speak is personally spoken by Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Like a stringed instrument, I vibrate whatever he causes me to speak. In this way, the Lord speaks through my mouth to preach the cult of Krishna consciousness within the world. Who will understand this pastime of the Lord's? What I have heard from Ramananda Roy is like a nectarian ocean of discourses about Krishna. Even the demigods, beginning with Lord Brahma, cannot understand all these topics. My dear Lord, you have made me drink this transcendental nectar of Krishna Katha. Therefore I am sold to your lotus feet, life after life. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, Ramananda Roy is a mind of great humility. Therefore he has attributed his own words to another's intelligence. This is a natural characteristic of those advanced in devotional service. They do not personally speak of their own good qualities. I have described but a fraction of the transcendental attributes of Ramananda Roy, as revealed when he instructed Pradyumna Misra. Although Ramananda Roy was a householder, he was not under the control of the 6 kinds of bodily changes. although apparently a pounds and shillings man, he advised even persons in the renounced order. Purport. Sri Ramananda Roy externally appeared to be a grihastha who was under the influence of the external material energy, not a self-controlled brahmachari, vanaprastha, or sannyasi. Grihasthas, householders who are under the influence of the external energy, accept householder life for the purpose of sense enjoyment, but a transcendentally situated Vaishnava is not subjected to the influence of the senses by the Lord's material rule of the 6 kinds of bodily changes, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, and matsarya. For those of you who don't know the Sanskrit words, that's lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. Even when he plays the part of a grihastha. Thus, although Sri Ramananda Roy acted as a grihastha and was accepted as an ordinary pounds and shillings man, he was always absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of Lord Krishna. Therefore, his mind was spiritually situated, and he was interested only in the subject of Krishna. Ramananda Roy was not among the Mayavadi impersonalists or materialistic logicians who were opposed to the principles of Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. He was already spiritually situated in the order of renounced life. Therefore, he was able to turn sand into gold by spiritual potency, or in other words, to elevate a person from a material to a spiritual position. Translation. To demonstrate the transcendental attributes of Ramananda Roy, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu sent Pradyumna Misra to hear discourses about Krishna from him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, knows very well how to demonstrate the qualities of his devotees. Therefore, acting like an artistic painter, he does so in various ways and considers this his personal profit. Yet there is yet another characteristic of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. O devotees, listen carefully to how he manifests his opulence and characteristics, although they are exceptionally deep. To vanquish the false pride of so-called renunciates and learned scholars, he spreads real religious principles, even through a Shudra or low-born fourth-class man. Purport. When a man is greatly learned in the Vedanta Sutras, he is known as a Pandit, or learned scholar. Generally, this qualification is attributed to Brahmanas and Sannyasis. Sannyas, the renounced order of life, is the topmost position for a Brahmana, a member of the highest of the 4 Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. According to public opinion, a person born in a Brahmana family, duly reformed by the purificatory processes and properly initiated by a spiritual master, is an authority on Vedic literature. When such a person is offered the sannyas order, he comes to occupy the topmost position. The Brahmana is supposed to be the spiritual master of the other 3 Varnas, namely Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and the sannyasi is supposed to be the spiritual master even of the exalted Brahmanas. Generally, Brahmanas and sannyasis are very proud of their spiritual positions. Therefore, to cut down their false pride, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu preached Krishna consciousness through Ramananda Roy, who was neither a member of the renounced order nor a born Brahmana. Indeed, Sri Ramananda Roy was a grihastha belonging to the Shudra class. Yet Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu arranged for him to be the master who taught Pradyumna Misra, a highly qualified Brahmana, born in a Brahmana family. Even Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself, although belonging to the renounced order, took instructions from Ramananda Roy. In this way, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his opulence through Sri Ramananda Roy. That is the special significance of this incident. According to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, Ye Krishna Tattvaveta, se Guru hoy. Anyone who knows the science of Krishna can become a spiritual master, without reference to whether or not he is a Brahmana or sannyasi. Ordinary people cannot understand the essence of Shastra, nor can they understand the pure character, behavior, and abilities of strict followers of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's principles. The Krishna consciousness movement is creating pure, exalted Vaishnavas, even from those born in families considered lower than those of Shudras. This is proof that a Vaishnava may appear in any family, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. Kirata hunandra pulinda polkasha abhyura shumbha yamana kasada yaha ye chapapa yadapashriyaha shudyanti tasmai prabhavishnave namaha. Kiratas, Hunas, Andras, Pulindas, Pulkashas, Abhiras, Shumbas, Yavanas, and members of the Kasa races, and even others addicted to sinful acts, may be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord, due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. By the grace of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, anyone can be completely purified, become a preacher of Krishna consciousness, and become the spiritual master of the entire world. This principle is accepted in all Vedic literature. Evidence can be quoted from authoritative shastras, showing how a low-born person can become the spiritual master of the entire world. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is to be considered the most munificent personality, for he distributes the real essence of the Vedic shastras to anyone who becomes qualified by becoming his sincere servant. Text 85. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu preached about devotional service, ecstatic love, and the absolute truth by making Ramananda Roy, a Grihastha born in a low family, the speaker. Then Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu himself, the exalted Brahmana sannyasi, and Pradyumna Misra, the purified Brahmana, both became the hearers of Ramananda Roy. Purport. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya that sannyasis in the line of Shankaracharya always think that they have performed all the duties of Brahmanas, and that furthermore, having understood the essence of the Vedanta Sutra and become sannyasis, they are the natural spiritual masters of all society. Similarly, persons born in Brahmana families think that because they execute the ritualistic ceremonies recommended in the Vedas and follow the principles of Smriti, they alone can become spiritual masters of society. These highly exalted Brahmanas think that unless one is born in a Brahmana family, one cannot become a spiritual master and teach the absolute truth. To cut down the pride of these birthright Brahmanas and Mayavadi sannyasis, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu proved that a person like Ramananda Roy, although born in a Shudra family and situated in the Grihastha ashram, can become the spiritual master of such exalted personalities as himself and Pradyumna Misra. This is the principle of the Vaishnava cult, as evinced in the teachings of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. A person who knows what is spiritual and what is material, and who is firmly fixed in the spiritual position, can become Jagat Guru, the spiritual master of the entire world. One cannot become Jagat Guru simply by advertising oneself as Jagat Guru without knowing the essential principles for becoming Jagat Guru. Even people who never see what a Jagat Guru is and never talk with other people become puffed up sannyasis and declare themselves Jagat Gurus. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu did not like this. Any person who knows the science of Krishna and who is fully qualified in spiritual life can become Jagat Guru. Thus Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu personally took lessons from Sri Ramananda Roy and also sent Pradyumna Misra, an exalted Brahmana, to take lessons from him. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited the glories of the holy name of the Lord through Haridas Thakur, who was born in a Muslim family. Similarly, He exhibited the essence of devotional service through Sanatana Goswami, who had almost been converted into a Muslim. Also, the Lord fully exhibited the ecstatic love and transcendental pastimes of Vrindavan through Srila Rupa Goswami. Considering all this, who can understand the deep plans of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu? The activities of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu are just like an ocean of nectar. Even a drop of this ocean can inundate all the three worlds. Purport. To inundate the three worlds with nectar is the purpose of the pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. How this could be possible was exhibited by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami and later by Thakur Narottam Das and Shyamananda Goswami, who all represented the mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Now that same mercy is overflooding the entire world through the Krishna consciousness movement. The present Krishna consciousness movement is non-different from the pastimes performed by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu when he was personally present, for the same principles are being followed and the same actions performed without fail. O devotees, relish daily the nectar of Sri Caitanya-caritamrta and the pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, for by doing so one can merge in transcendental bliss and attain full knowledge of devotional service. Thus, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, accompanied by his associates, his pure devotees, enjoyed transcendental bliss in Jagannath Puri, Nilachala, by preaching the bhakti cult in many ways. A Brahmana from Bengal wrote a drama about the characteristics of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and came with his manuscript to induce the Lord to hear it. The Brahmana was acquainted with Bhagavan Acharya, one of the devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, after meeting him in Jagannath Puri, the Brahmana made his residence at Bhagavan Acharya's home. First, the Brahmana induced Bhagavan Acharya to hear the drama, and then many other devotees joined Bhagavan Acharya in listening to it. All the Vaishnavas praised the drama, saying, "Very good, very good." They also desired that Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu hear the drama. Customarily, anyone who composed a song, verse, literary composition, or poem about Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu first had to bring it to Swarup Damodar Goswami to be heard. If passed by Swarup Damodar Goswami, it could be presented for Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to hear. If there were a hint that transcendental mellows overlapped in a manner contrary to the principles of the bhakti cult, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would not tolerate it and would become very angry. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quotes the following definition of Rasa Bhasa from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Uttara Vibhaga. A mellow, temporarily appearing transcendental, but contradicting mellows previously stated, and lacking some of a mellow's necessities, is called Rasa Bhasa, an overlapping mellow by advanced devotees who know how to taste transcendental mellows. Such mellows are called uparasa, sub-mellows, anurasa, imitation transcendental mellows, and uparasa, opposing transcendental mellows. Thus, the overlapping of transcendental mellows is described as being first grade, second grade, or third grade. When the 12 mellows, such as neutrality, servitorship, and friendship, are characterized by adverse staibhav, vaibhav, vibhav, and anubhav ecstasies, they are known as uparasa, sub-mellows. When the 7 indirect transcendental mellows and the dried-up mellow of neutrality are produced by devotees in moods not directly related to Krishna and devotional service and ecstatic love, they are described as anurasa, imitation mellows. If Krishna and the enemies who harbor feelings of opposition toward him are respectively the object and abodes of the mellow of laughter. The resulting feelings are called aparasa, opposing mellows. Experts in distinguishing one mellow from another sometimes accept some overlapping transcendental mellows, rasa basa, as rasas, due to their being pleasurable and tasteful. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Paraspara Varyor Yadi. Whoops, I went somewhere. What happened? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, here it is. Experts in distinguishing one mellow from another sometimes accept some overlapping transcendental mellows, rasa basa, as rasas, due to their being pleasurable and tasteful. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Paraspara Variyor Yadi Tada Rasa Basa. When two opposing transcendental mellows overlap, they produce rasa basa, or an overlapping of transcendental mellows. That's a very technical purport, which is down the road for us to understand. There's so many things you have to understand to be able to understand that purport. So we don't worry about that, we just hear and try to appreciate. Translation. Therefore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu would not hear anything before Sarup Damodar heard it first. The Lord made this etiquette a regulated principle. Bhagavanacharya submitted to Sarup Damodar Goswami. A good Brahmana has prepared a drama about Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu that appears exceptionally well composed. First you hear it, and if it is acceptable to your mind, I shall request Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to hear it. Sarup Damodar Goswami replied, Dear Bhagavanacharya, you are a very liberal cowherd boy. Sometimes the desire awakens within you to hear any kind of poetry. In the writings of so-called poets, there is generally a possibility of overlapping transcendental mellows. When the mellows thus go against the conclusive understanding, no one likes to hear such poetry. Purport. Yadva Tadva Kavi refers to anyone who writes poetry without knowledge of how to do so. Writing poetry, especially poetry concerning the Vaishnava conclusion, is very difficult. If one writes poetry without proper knowledge, there is every possibility that the mellows will overlap. When this occurs, no learned or advanced Vaishnava will like to hear it. A so-called poet, translation, a so-called poet who has no knowledge of transcendental mellows and the overlapping of transcendental mellows cannot cross the ocean of the conclusions of devotional service. A poet who does not know the grammatical regulated principles, who is unfamiliar with metaphorical ornaments, especially those employed in drama, and who does not know how to present the pastimes of Lord Krishna, is condemned. Moreover, the pastimes, you want this off? Anybody want this off?
No.
Huh? You want it off? Okay, so the low hanging one, yeah. Okay. A poet who does not know the grammatical regulated principles, who is unfamiliar with metaphorical ornaments, especially those employed in drama, and who does not know how to present the pastimes of Lord Krishna, is condemned. Moreover, the pastimes of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu are especially difficult to understand. One who has accepted the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu as his life and soul can describe the pastimes of Lord Krishna or the pastimes of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Hearing the poetry of a person who has no transcendental knowledge and who writes about the relationships between man and woman simply causes unhappiness whereas hearing the words of a devotee, fully absorbed in ecstatic love, causes great happiness. Purport. Gramya Kavi refers to a poet or writer, such as the authors of novels and other fiction, who write only about the relationships between man and woman. Vidagda Atmiya Vakya, however, refers to words written by a devotee who fully understands pure devotional service. Such devotees who follow the Parampara system are sometimes described as Sajatiyashaya Snigdha, or pleasing to the same class of people. Only the poetry and other writings of such devotees are accepted with great happiness by devotees. The standard for writing dramas has been set by Rupa Goswami. If a devotee hears the introductory portions of his two dramas, they enhance his transcendental pleasure. Despite the explanation of Sri Damodar, Bhagavanacharya requested, please hear the drama once. If you hear it, you can consider whether it is good or bad. For 2 or 3 days, Bhagavanacharya continually asked Swarup Damodar Goswami to hear the poetry. Because of his repeated requests, Swarup Damodar Goswami wanted to hear the poetry written by the Brahmana from Bengal. Swarup Damodar Goswami sat down with other devotees to hear the poetry, and then the poet began to read the introductory verse. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has assumed a golden complexion and has become the soul of the body named Lord Jagannath, whose blooming lotus eyes are widely expanded. Thus he has appeared in Jagannath Puri and brought dull matter to life. Oops. May that Lord, Sri Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya Dev, bestow all good fortune upon you. When everyone present heard the verse, they all commended the poet. But Swarup Damodar Goswami requested him, kindly explain this verse. The poet said, Lord Jagannath is a most beautiful body, and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who is exceptionally grave, is the owner of that body. Shariri, purport. Shariri refers to a person who owns the sharira or body, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:13. Dehino sminyata dehe komaram jovanam jara tatadihantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. For the ordinary living being in material existence, there is a division or distinction between the body and the owner of the body. In spiritual existence, however, there is no such distinction, for the body is the owner himself, and the owner is the body itself. In spiritual existence, everything must be spiritual. Therefore, there is no distinction between the body and its owner. Translation. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared, this is the poet now, continuing. Sri Caitanya, to explain that introductory verse. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared here in Nilachala, Jagannath Puri, to spiritualize the entire dull material world. Hearing this, everyone present was greatly happy, but Swarup Damodar, who alone was very unhappy, began to speak in great anger. You are a fool, he said. You have brought ill fortune upon yourself, for you have no knowledge of the existence of the two lords, Jagannath Dev and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, nor have you faith in them. Lord Jagannath is completely spiritual and full of transcendental bliss, but you have compared him to a dull, destructible body composed of the inert external energy of the Lord. If one thinks that the form of Lord Jagannath is an idol made of wood, he immediately brings ill fortune to his life. Now I want to go back up. This is what? This is 118. Just to make it clear, I want to read that verse again. See if you can see clearly what he's talking about. The Supreme Personality of Godhead The Supreme Personality of God, this is verse 111. Yeah, no, 112. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has assumed a golden complexion and has become the soul of the body, named Lord Jagannath, whose blooming lotus eyes are widely expanded. Thus he has appeared in Jagannath Puri and brought dull matter to life. You hear what he's saying? May that Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Dev bestow all good fortune upon you. So he's saying Lord Jagannath is wood, dull matter, and Lord Chaitanya has become the soul of that body. Therefore he's making a distinction between the body and the soul of the Supreme Lord. That's what he's talking about. So now where were we, did I say? Huh? God, I forgot to remember what.
117.
117. Okay. Oh yeah, you were a fool. So we read that one. Lord Jagannath is completely spiritual and full of transcendental bliss, but you have compared him to a dull, destructible body composed of the inert, external energy of the Lord. So it's clear what he's done. Purport. If one thinks that the form of Lord Jagannath is an idol made of wood, he immediately brings ill fortune into his life. According to the direction of Padma Purana, Arche Vishnu Shiladi, Yasyava Narakisaha. Anyone who considers the deity in the temple to be made of stone or wood is a resident of hell. Thus one who thinks that the body of Lord Jagannath is made of matter and who distinguishes between Lord Jagannath's body and his soul is condemned, for he is an offender. A pure devotee who knows the science of Krishna consciousness makes no distinction between Lord Jagannath and his body. He knows that they are identical, just as Lord Krishna and his soul are one and the same. When one's eyes are purified by devotional service performed on the spiritual platform, one can actually envision Lord Jagannath and his body as being completely spiritual. The advanced devotee, therefore, does not see the worshipable deity as having a soul within a body like an ordinary human being. There is no distinction between the body and the soul of Lord Jagannath, for Lord Jagannath is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, just as the body of Krishna is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. There is actually no difference between Lord Jagannath and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, but the ignorant poet from Bengal applied a material distinction to the body of Lord Jagannath. You have calculated Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in six opulences, to be on the level of an ordinary living being. Instead of knowing him as the Supreme Fire, you have accepted him as a spark. Purport. In the Upanishads it is said, Yatagner Vishpulinga Vyucharanti. The living entities are like sparks of fire, and his lordship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is considered the original great fire. When we hear this Shruti Vakya, or message from the Vedas, we should understand the distinction between the Supreme Lord Krishna and the living entities. A person under the control of the external energy, however, cannot understand that distinction. Such a person cannot understand that the Supreme Person is the original great fire, whereas the living entities are simply small, fragmental parts of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vangsho Jivaloke Jiva Bhutak Sanatanaha Manat Shastran Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. There is a distinction between the body and the soul of the materially existing living being. But because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath do not possess material bodies, there is no distinction between their bodies and souls. On the spiritual platform, body and soul are identical. There is no distinction between them. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Etad Ishanam Ishasya Prakritisto Pitad Gunahi Nayujyate Sadatmastayar Yata Buddhis Tadashraya. This is the divinity of the personality of Godhead. He is not affected by the qualities of material nature, even though he is in contact with them. Similarly, the devotees who have taken shelter of the Lord cannot be influenced by the material qualities. His Lordship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, is unaffected by the influence of the three modes of material nature. Indeed, his devotees are also unpolluted by the influence of the external energy because they engage in the service of his Lordship. Even the very body of a devotee becomes spiritualized, just as an iron rod put into fire becomes as qualified as fire because it becomes red hot and will immediately burn anything it touches. Therefore, the poet from Bengal committed a great offense by treating Lord Jagannath's body and Lord Jagannath, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as two different entities, material and spiritual, as if the Lord were an ordinary living being. The Lord is always the master of the material energy. Therefore, he is not doomed. The Lord is always the master of the material energy. Therefore, he is not doomed to be covered by the material energy like an ordinary living entity. All glories to Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. How he explains the deepest, most intricate spiritual philosophy and truth is in a way that we can understand is out of this world, literally. Text 120. Swarup Damodar continued, because you have committed an offense to Lord Jagannath and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, you will attain a hellish destination. You do not know how to describe the absolute truth, but nevertheless you have tried to do so. Therefore you must be condemned. Purport. The Brahmana poet from Bengal was an offender in the estimation of Swarup Damodar Goswami, for although the poet had no knowledge of the absolute truth, he had nevertheless tried to describe it. The Bengali poet was an offender to both Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath, because he had made a distinction between Lord Jagannath's body and his soul, and because he had indicated that Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was different from Lord Jagannath, he had committed offenses to both of them. A tattvagya refers to one who has no knowledge. Atattvagya refers to one who has no knowledge of the absolute truth, or who worships his own body as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In an ahangraho pasaka mayavadi, if an ahangraho pasaka mayavadi, a person engaged in fruitive activities, or a person interested only in sense gratification, describes the absolute truth, he immediately becomes an offender. Now, before your mind goes completely negative and says, oh, why is he condemning? He's a spiritualist. You'll see later on. Anyway, we'll see what happens. You are in complete illusion, for you have distinguished between the body and the soul of his Lordship, Lord Jagannath, or Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. That is a great offense. Purport. When one differentiates between the body and the soul of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he immediately becomes an offender. Because the living entities in the material world are generally covered by material bodies, the body and the soul of an ordinary human being cannot be identical. The Supreme Lord bestows the fruits of one's activities, for he is the Lord of the results of fruitive action. He is also the cause of all causes, and he is the master of the material energy. Therefore, he is supreme. An ordinary living being, however, in his material condition, experiences the results of his own fruitive activities, and therefore he falls under their influence. Even in the liberated stage of Brahmabhuta identification, he engages in rendering service to his lordship. Thus, there are distinctions between an ordinary human being and the Supreme Lord. Karmis and Jnanis who ignore these distinctions are offenders against the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. An ordinary human being is prone to be subjected by the material energy, whereas his Lordship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Krishna, or Lord Jagannath, is always the master of the material energy and is therefore never subject to its influence. His Lordship, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is an unlimited spiritual entity, never to be broken, whereas the consciousness of the living entity is limited and fragmented. The living entities are fragmental portions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally. Mamaivangsha jiva loke, jiva bhutak sanatanaha. It is not that they are covered by the material energy in conditioned life, but become one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead when freed from the influence of material energy. Such an idea is offensive. According to the considerations of Mayavadi fools, the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepts a material body when he appears in the material world. A Vaishnava, however, knows perfectly well that for Krishna, Lord Jagannath, or Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, unlike for ordinary human beings, there is no distinction between the body and the soul. Even in the material world, his Lordship retains his spiritual identity. Therefore, Lord Krishna exhibited all opulences even in his childhood body. There is no distinction between the body and the soul of Krishna, whether he is in his childhood body or his youthful body. He is always identical with his body. Even though Krishna appears like an ordinary human being, he is never subjected to the rules and regulations of the material world. He is Swarat, or fully independent. He can appear in the material world, but contrary to the offensive conclusions of the Mayavad school, he has no material body. In this connection, one may again refer to the above-mentioned verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Etad Ishanam Ishasya Prakritisto Pitad Gunahi Nayujjate Sadat Mastair Yata Buddhist Tadashraya. The Supreme Person has an eternal spiritual body. If one tries to distinguish between the body and the soul of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he commits a great offense. Translation. At no time is there a distinction between the body and the soul of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His personal identity and his body are made of blissful spiritual energy. There is no distinction between them. Purport. Lord Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is Advaya Gyan. In other words, there is no distinction between his body and his soul, for his existence is completely spiritual. According to the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with the words Vedanti Tat Tat Vavidas Tatvam, the absolute truth is always to be understood from three angles of vision as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Unlike the objects of the material world, however, the absolute truth is always one and always the same. Thus, there is no distinction between his body and his soul. His form, name, attributes, and pastimes, therefore, are completely distinct from those of the material world. One should know perfectly well that there is no difference between the body and the soul of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one conceives of a distinction between his body and soul, one is immediately conditioned by material nature. Because a person in the material world makes such distinctions, he is called Badajiva, a conditioned soul. Text 123. There is no distinction between the body and the soul of the Supreme Personality of Godhead at any time. For purport, this quotation, which is included in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, is from the Kurma Purana. O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your Lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, yet you are untouched by matter. This present form, or any transcendental form, expanded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is equally auspicious for all the universes. Since you have manifested this eternal personal form, upon whom your devotees meditate, I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Those who are destined to be dispatched to the path of hell neglect your personal form because of speculating on material topics. These verses from Srimad Bhagavatam were spoken by Lord Brahma. Translation. Whereas Krishna, the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is full of transcendental bliss, possesses all 6 spiritual opulences in full, and is the master of the material energy, the small conditioned soul who is always unhappy is the servant of the material energy. Whereas Krishna, the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is full of transcendental bliss, possesses all 6 spiritual opulences in full, and is the master of the material energy, the small conditioned soul, who is always unhappy, is the servant of the material energy. Purport. The living entity is an ever-conditioned servant of the material energy, whereas Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the master of the material energy. How then could they be on an equal level? There can be no comparison between them. His Lordship is always in a happy condition of transcendental bliss, whereas the conditioned soul is always unhappy because of his contact with the material energy. The Supreme Lord controls the material energy, and the material energy controls the conditioned souls. There is therefore no comparison between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the ordinary living entity. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, is always full of transcendental bliss and is accompanied by the potencies known as Ladini and Sambit. The conditioned soul, however, is always covered by ignorance and embarrassed by the threefold miseries of life. Thus he is a treasure house of all kinds of tribulations. Purport. This verse is found in Sridhar Swami's Bhavarta Dipika, wherein he quotes Sri Vishnu Swami. Hearing this explanation, all the members of the assembly were struck with wonder. Srup Damodar Goswami has spoken the real truth, they admitted. The Brahmana from Bengal has committed an offense by wrongly describing Lord Jagannath and Lord Sri Caitanya-caritamrta. So this is such a, I'm going to stop here because it's almost 9 o'clock and I don't know, I went too long last night. Everybody was very, very tired. So what I was going to say was that, you know, just because a group of devotees who are sincere and even elevated, because these are all Lord Chaitanya's associates who are listening, still, you know, it takes a very intimate associate of Krishna to always be able to discriminate exactly what is right and wrong in these intricate spiritual topics, subject matters. So therefore we have to be very careful and hear, you know, the purports and the verses translated by Srila Prabhupada and written by him. Hare Krishna. So, reflections. Comments? Questions? What's going on over there? This is whole...
She came and she sat outside to listen.
Oh.
Really slow.
Who is it? Oh, Hare Krishna. Haribo. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. So,
Can I ask a question?
yeah, sure.
The verse, the poetry that the Brahmana read, yeah, we right away think that, okay, why are they comparing Lord Jagannath as the body? But in sometimes they also describe in some scriptures the soul of the Lord are the acharyas. Like they just say it so that the acharya's position is so elevated that the actual soul of the Lord are the acharyas.
But that's different. Philosophically, that's different.
Yeah.
You know, when you say, I don't know if this is true with you, but my husband is my soul.
No husband. I'm very lucky that.
Lucky you!
Yeah.
Anyway, if you had a husband, you could say, my husband is my life and soul. Or this person very dear to me is my life and soul. That's different. It's a poetic expression. That, not a poetic expression, that's the wrong term to use. It's a, what's the English phrase?
Alliteration?
No, not alliteration.
Like glorification for that person.
No, it's a, yes, but it's an expression of a person's appreciation and love for that other person. He's my life and soul. He means more to me than my own life. So that's different than saying Lord Jagannath is dull matter and Lord Chaitanya has entered into that matter and made it alive.
Because when he explained his poetry, he said the dull matter is this material energy, but was he referring to the body of Lord Jagannath?
Yes. Shall we go back and read it again?
No,
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. I went back and read it before you came.
Oh, I have been here.
No, but did you hear me when I went back?
Yes.
Oh, you did.
Yes.
Okay. So when we went back and read that verse, which was what verse?
111.
111. Now we're on 129. Don't let me forget, because I liable to, because I'm tired. We'll hear that again, because this is very important, the point you're making. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has assumed a golden complexion and has become the soul of the body named Lord Jagannath, whose blooming lotus eyes are widely expanded. Thus he has appeared in Jagannath Puri and brought dull matter to life. So the dull matter to life refers back to the body of Lord Jagannath, clearly. May that Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Dev bestow all good fortune upon us. So, the point is that, you know, we have to be careful as devotees, because even a group of devotees, who we hear from, that's why I'm so much on this mission. You know, sometimes the devotees want, well, Maharaj, no, you should speak. You know, we want to hear what your realizations are. And I say, well, sometimes I can give a realization, but it's so safe to read Prabhupada's books like this out loud and let him explain everything. So it becomes so clear. Anyway, thanks for bringing up the point.
I was just wondering if there was some sort of a difference between that glorification of the acharyas versus glorifying Lord Chaitanya like that. Because of course they are demeaning a little bit the body of Lord Jagannath, but they're still glorifying Lord Chaitanya.
No, they're not demeaning the body at all. They're anyway, I said it before. If you use the expression, there's a word for this. my editor's brain is not completely reactivated yet from what I just went through, so I can't figure the name of the word. It is poetic. It's a simile or poetic, but it's not in a simile. That person is my life and soul. It doesn't mean that person is my soul.
Mm-hmm.
The person is my life and soul. Means
They're
he's
very
dearer to
important.
me.
Yeah.
He's extremely dear to me.
Yeah.
What is the word? There's a word for this. Anyway, I can't remember the word, but you understand the concept.
Yes.
That's not saying that person is my soul.
Yes.
That there's no difference between me and him.
Uh-huh. Yes.
It's different.
Yes. I can understand. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. That's the answer.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
My bewitching hour has now arrived. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.